I'm delighted to be part of this extraordinary event. My name is Citra Ariandari from Yogyakarta, Indonesia. On this occasion, I will share ideas and discussion about the legacy of Yap Kunz, a colonial who lived for about 15 years in Indonesia and became the initiator from the discipline of ethnomusicology. Vacation on Grandma's house is a sentence that has multiple interpretations. Vacationing at the Grandma's house has always been an activity that requires special preparation. The relationship between our ancestors and us is not always beautiful and holds many memories. If the memories are beautiful, we are not willing to forget, but we choose to not to remember if the memories are painful. That's how I try to describe the relationship between the colonizer and the colonized whose legacy is now inside. Do we want to remember, forget, or maybe just make a new history? This paper is based on the opening project of Yap Kunz collection, which is approximately 100 years old, which was initiated by University van Amsterdam and funded by European Heritage. Without much consideration, this project seemed interesting. Still, when I tried to get involved with this legacy opening, some awareness needs to be considered about the implication of opening up colonial heritage. Some basic questions are present as a guide in this discussion, including how will the legacy be unlocked and what are the possible impacts? How has Yap Kunz's legacy shaped the discourse on archives, science, and colonialism? Will the Yap Kunz archive be forgotten, remembered, or will it make new history? To discuss further, let's see Yap Kunz's journey in some points. When I was in college, I got to know Yap Kunz through his work entitled Music and Java. Subjectively, I find this book difficult to understand, maybe because at first glance, its page contains symbols and numbers that look complicated and logical. I grew up in Yogyakarta, where gamelan is considered as representation of Javanese cultural identity. I only had the opportunity to learn gamelan when studying at the Department of Ethnomusicology. For 5 semesters, I studied gamelan but still far from the word expert. Although familiar, the pattern of learning gamelan with the number, transcription, and Western music logic is quite confusing and depends on music sheet. In 2014, I was invited to see gamelan learning at the Amsterdam Conservatory by Else Plantema. I was amazed because the students in the class were very good at playing the gamelan, and they didn't seem to be reading the partiture. They invited me to play together, and of course, I was very embarrassed because I was not as good as them and depend on the music sheet. I asked Elsie how they could become so proficient and not rely on music sheet. Elsa briefly replied that playing gamelan, of course, with rasa. In a research, I tried to record the process of learning gamelan for children in Yogyakarta. I found that almost all gamelan communities use partitur as a learning method, not with rasa. In the book Music in Java, Yap Kunz briefly discusses the Sari Suara learning method initiated by Ki Hajar Dewantoro, the founder of Taman Siswa School and known as the father of Indonesian education. Why do gamelan learning method now rely on numerical notation transcript? The gamelan notation system with numbers is believed to have been widely published and adopted because of the book Music in Java. In 2014, I had the opportunity to become a guest lecturer at the Department Music University van Amsterdam to teach several Indonesian culture courses with Barbara Titus. Barbara gave me a lot of reading material for a lecture on cultural musicology, which differ from Yap Koon's book. These readings opened my narrow mind about ethnomusicology, which was not form, function, meaning, organology, and notation. Ethnomusicology as scientific discipline developed by Yap Koon has grown so widely. However, in Indonesia, the material object of science appears still at the level of cultural preservation efforts and does not follow the global discourse. When at the University van Amsterdam, Barbara shared her room with me. She told me that the room once belonged to Ernst Hans, one of Yap Koon's students. Barbara also showed me of Yap Koon's legacy that was stored in the room. I saw several collections of wax cylinder, archive correspondence, photo, film, various sound recording, and read a compilation of fascinating writing by Yap Koon and his students. In the books, I learned that one of the reasons Yap Koon did field research by recording in exotic area was the motivation of conservation effort before all was lost. Yap Koon felt that the presence of the missionary will make the music and performance culture in the archipelago slowly disappear. In 2017, Barbara Titus said she was chosen as curator to open the Yap Koon's legacy by University van Amsterdam. She invited me to participate. We organized Yap Koon heritage instrument, audio, photos, and videos. After obtaining preliminary data regarding Yap Koon's legacy, we held a hearing with several relevant parties to seek support. A great start, we were able to meet directly with Mr. Hilmar Farid, who served as General Director of Culture at the Ministry of Education and Culture of Republik Indonesia. We presented Yap Koon's journey in recording music in the archipelago and playing some Yap Koon's recording, and he supported the activity we carry out. In 2018, the support emerged with focus group discussion activity discussing the work step of this project at PPNB, Yogyakarta, which happened to be the house of KRT Joyodipuro where Yap Koon once lived in that place. Barbara Titus confessed the distribution and condition of the heritage that need urgent conservation. One of attendees from the province of Bali said that Bali had carried out similar project, namely the repatriation of Bali documentation of 1928. Edward Herbst initiated this activity from UCLA in collaboration with an academician from Bali, Imade Bandem. In the 1928 repatriation project, the scattered recording Balinese art produced by German company Odeon Beka were digitized, and some have been returned to cultural owner community. The people who own the culture are surprised because some people still remember the recording process. This is very interesting because the archive is present as a medium to recall past events with a different narrative, and a little history was formed. Hearing what Edward Herbst and friends did in the Bali Repatriation Project 1928, the picture of the urgency of opening Yap Koon's legacy becomes more evident and more apparent. Apart from discussing, we also played several pieces of silent film recorded by Yap Koon. Through this film, the audience witnessed a striking visual change, especially in several parts of Indonesia. Indonesia is anxious about the wave of Islamic radicalism originating from the expansion of Middle Eastern culture, as if it gets a breath of fresh air when watching videos of people lived 100 years ago. In the Aceh region, which currently applies Islamic law, it turns out that visually none of the women were wearing the hijab at that time. The prison general director implied that if the Yap Koon's legacy was opened, there might be significant change in representing cultural identity. And finally, the plan opening the Yap Koon's legacy will be continued with the kick-off program for the following year. In 2019, the Yapkun's Heritage Opening Program began to be echoed in several European regions. We started to conduct many discussions and workshops with related parties such as Bill and Geluid in Hilversum, which store Dutch audiovisual heritage, Lautarchive at Humboldt University Berlin, which keep voice archive of various language and dialect prisoners for First World War, Berlin Phonogram Archive, which holds diverse the word collection of musical instruments also recorded signed by Jaap Koens, and the Wien Phonogram Archive in Austria, which is now active in digitizing and organizing sound archive. From that trip, I visited to Lautarchive caught my attention. I had the opportunity to choose several plates to play with. One of the plates was recording prisoner from Johor who spoke in Malay. He sang a song about his longing for his hometown and hoping to be released soon. The poem sounds very sad and heart-wrenching. The recording was initiated by a German psychologist named Karl Stumpf, a language teacher, to rule the world with sound culture. Prisoners of World War I who came from colonial countries are large sampled to start research. During the recording process, prisoners were asked questions about their origin and their ability to play music, and after that, their voices were recorded. Some only counted numbers in their language until some sang meaningfully, hoping to be released soon. This condition reminds me of the silent film recorded by Jaap Koens. In the video compilation from various archipelago regions, all recorded performances have the meaning of war. In some of his notes, Jaap Koens does not highlight this. He only records and transcribes music from the region, also tells how he persuades the public to be recorded, which often costs him a lot. Based on this record, it can be assumed that people choose war performances to represent resistance to colonialism. The question then, can archive track subaltern voices? At the end of 2019, the kick-off program was planned to be held at the National Museum of Indonesia, and I was not involved. Without much publication, the event showcased Jaap Koens' legacy in the form of an Indonesian musical instrument left at the Museum of the Batavia Royal Society. It is said that legacy of musical instruments stored is more than 500, and some are still in good condition. After this activity, we no longer heard from the government of Republik Indonesia about the continuation of this project. In 2020, along with the pandemic, Barbara Titus conveyed the good news about a new program that she initiated called Decolonizing of Southeast Asia Sound Archive, where one of her pilot projects opened the legacy of Jaap Koens. By collaborating with many parties from Europe and Southeast Asia, DECOSEAS is funded by the Joint Programming Initiative. DECOSEAS wants to liberate the archive from Southeast Asia to be accessed by the public and open dialogue about the archive. An exciting activity, but one needs to rethink how post-colonial society view the archives. Is it urgent to remember, forget, or make a new history? The idea of opening the legacy of the Jaap Koens, which is around 100 years old, has not been entirely smooth sailing. The Indonesian government support as a state director related to the archive store until now has not been seen clearly. Kick-off activities regarding Jaap Koens' legacy are more like an exhibition of Indonesian musical instruments, not revealing colonial history. Many factors cannot be related to this archive, which expected as a form of remembering forgetting. At the same time, many experts state that, unlike a national archive, colonial history is rarely recognized as an archive for a post-colonial state. This statement is interesting considering how Sukarno, as the first president of Indonesia, constructed nation identity by taking berdikari, or on contemporary language Do It Ourselves as a movement to reject neocolonialism. This indirectly affects how Indonesian people view colonial archives. Yap Kun's work while in Indonesia produced a rich archive. The archives highlight many issues, such as how Yap Kun compiles his material in collaboration with musicians from Indonesia can provide valuable insight into the formation of colonial knowledge. However, dialogue in ethnomusicology has developed quite dynamically since Yap Kun started with comparative musicology. About 2 decades of conference, classroom, blogs, and academic literature are uncomfortable with Yap Kun's ideas that cannot be separated from colonial history. Martin Stokes states that the ethno of ethnomusicology may no longer represent action of many people or group because it implies the musicology of others. There are clear boundaries separating us from them. The insecurity of ethnomusicology as a discipline, not only a space for ongoing discussion about its direction, future, but new scholarship also over changing research practices and new alliances. Yap Kun's journey from recording Indonesian music to constructing musical knowledge outside the West is an exciting narrative to discuss. It is like opening a photo album at grandma's house, and there are memory of a time and the vision of whether the future will repeat the same story or be completely different.